waters, streams, rivers, lakes, wetlands, flooded agricultural fields such as taro or watercress fields, springs, and mudflats. It also may include ditches, flumes, ponds, and reservoirs that are not part of a water pollution control system, and ditches, flumes, ponds, and reservoirs that overflow into another state water. Please note that state waters also may include concrete-lined drainage canals, dry or intermittent streams or gulches, and stream or river banks. For a full definition of state waters, please refer to HAR 1154-1. So, now that we know the definition of a pesticide in a state water, we can answer this question. Will you be applying a pesticide to a state water, or will the pesticide get into a state water during its application? If your answer to this question is no, then NPS coverage is not required, and you can go home now.
PGP Scenario 2, you are automatically covered. You do not have to submit an NOI. For scenario number 2, you begin by asking yourself the same question. Will you be applying a pesticide to a state water, or will the pesticide get into a state water during its application? If the answer is yes, you need to determine if the state water you are discharging to is a Class A marine water or a Class 2 inland water. You may determine the classification of a state water with the water quality standards maps. These maps are provided for general information only and are to be used in conjunction with HAR 11-54 to determine the state water classification. HAR 11-54 and the water quality standards maps are available on the Department of Health Clean Water Branch website. The web address is shown on your screen. If you have answered yes to discharging to a Class A marine water or a Class 2 inland water, you will need to ask yourself if the reason you are applying the pesticide is to control mosquito or other flying insect pests, weed or algae pests, animal pests, or forest canopy pests. If your pesticide application is for one of the 4 pesticide usage patterns, and you are not a state or federal government entity, you will move on to the next question. You will need to determine if you will be exceeding any of the following thresholds during a calendar year. For mosquito or other flying insect pests, adulticide treatment area greater than 6,400 acres. For weed, algae, and animal pests, treatment of more than 20 linear miles or treatment area greater than 80 acres of water. For forest canopy pests, treatment area greater than 6,400 acres. These thresholds are cumulative. For example, if you are applying a pesticide to both sides of a stream bank that is 15 miles long twice a year, that will be equal to 60 linear miles in that year. 15 miles times 2 banks times 2 applications per year equals 60 linear miles. If you are under the threshold, you are automatically covered under the Pesticide General Permit and do not need to submit a NOI, PDMP, or annual report. However, you are required to comply with requirements as applicable. For example, HAR 11-55 Appendix M, Sections 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. This means you must read the Pesticide General Permit. To summarize PGP scenario number 2, if you discharge pesticides to a Class A marine water or Class 2 inland water, the reason you are applying is to control mosquitoes or other flying insect pests, weed or algae pests, animal pests, or forest canopy pests. you are not a state or federal government entity, and you do not exceed the thresholds in 1 calendar year, you are automatically covered under the PGP. Since you are automatically covered under the PGP, you are not required to submit a notice of intent. You must still comply with HAR 11-55 Appendix M, Sections 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. Section 2 is the technology-based effluent limit. For example, you may only use the amount of pesticide and frequency of pesticide application necessary to control the target pest. You must maintain the pesticide equipment, etc. Section 3 is the water quality-based effluent limit. For example, you must comply with all numerical and narrative water quality standards as required in HAR 11-54. Section 4 is monitoring requirements. For example, visual monitoring for adverse incidents such as death of non-target organisms. Section 6 is corrective actions, and Section 7 is record keeping and annual reporting. Please read HAR 11-55 Appendix M for all requirements. Now we are going to cover PGP Scenario 3. In this scenario, you are not automatically covered under the PGP and you must submit a NOI. If you are not a state or federal entity, and you will be applying a pesticide to a state water, or the pesticide that you're applying will get into a state water during its application, and you are discharging to a Class A marine water or a Class 2 inland water, and the reason you're applying the pesticide is to control mosquito or other flying insect pests, weed or algae pests, animal pests, forest canopy pests, and you will be exceeding the thresholds during a calendar year. You need to determine if you are a large entity as defined in HAR 11-5501. If you are not a large entity, you are required to submit an NOI, keep records, and comply with other requirements for HAR 11-55 Appendix M. A PDMP and annual report are not required. If you are a large entity, you are required to submit an NOI, prepare a PDMP, keep records, prepare annual reports, and comply with other requirements for HAR 11-55 Appendix M. For state or federal government, your requirements will depend on whether you are considered a large entity. PGP Scenario Number 3 Summary. If you discharge pesticides to Class A marine waters or Class 2 inland waters, and the reason you are applying pesticides is to control mosquitoes or other flying insect pests, weed or algae pests, animal pests, or forest canopy pests, and you are not a state or federal government entity, but you exceed the cumulative thresholds listed below in 1 calendar year, or you are a state or federal government entity where the thresholds are not applicable, you must submit a notice of intent before your pesticide discharges are covered. Pesticide discharges without coverage are illegal. Further requirements will depend on if you are small or large. A small entity is a local government serving a population of 10,000 or more. Private enterprise that does not exceed a Small Business Administration size standards is based on the number of employees or annual receipts based on what industry you are in. For example, a soybean farmer is considered small if annual receipts are $750,000 or less. If you are a large entity, you are required to submit a NOI, prepare a pesticide discharge management plan or PDMP, and submit an annual report in accordance with HAR 11-55 Appendix F. If you are a small entity, you are required to submit an NOI, but do not have to prepare a PDNP or submit an annual report. Both large and small entities are required to read HAR 11-55 Appendix F. Now we are going to cover the last scenario, PGP scenario number 4. You are not qualified for PGP coverage, and you may need an individual NPDES permit. If you will be applying a pesticide to a state water, or your pesticide application will get into a state water, and your pesticide application will be in a Class A marine water or a Class 2 inland water, and your pesticide application does not fall under any of the pesticide usage patterns, you do not qualify for coverage under the Pesticide General Permit, and an individual NPDES permit may be required. We covered 4 main scenarios on the flowchart. The majority of all situations will be covered in these 4 scenarios. Please remember that this flowchart is intended to summarize permit applications.
A little bit of a break because I think we lost connection for the video with the outer islands. Sorry about that.
So when you guys want to check out on the website, Chapter 11, it's like 40 something pages. And Appendix F and on the Freeport Bench has a website.
Okay, we're back online. Sorry about that. Can I say? So we're going to get started again, going back to PGP scenario number 3, the summary of PGP scenario number 3. Well, I think that's where we got cut off. So thank you for your patience.
PGP scenario number 3 summary. If you discharge pesticides to Class A marine waters or Class 2 inland waters, and the reason you are applying pesticides is to control mosquitoes or other flying insect pests, weed or algae pests, animal pests, or forest canopy pests, and you are not a state or federal government entity, exceed the cumulative thresholds listed below in 1 calendar year, or you are a state or federal government entity where the thresholds are not applicable, you must submit a notice of intent before your pesticide discharges are covered. Pesticide discharges without coverage are illegal. Further requirements will depend on if you are small or large. A small entity is a local government serving a population of 10,000 or less. Private enterprise that does not exceed a small business administration size standards is based on the number of employees or annual receipts based on what industry you are in. For example, a soybean farmer is considered small if annual receipts are $750,000 or less. If you are a large entity, you are required to submit a NOI, prepare a pesticide discharge management plan or PDMP, and submit an annual report in accordance with HAR 11-55 Appendix M. If you are a small entity, you are required to submit an NOI, but do not have to prepare a PDMP or submit an annual report. Both large and small entities are required to read HAR 11-55 Appendix M. Now we are going to cover the last scenario, PGP scenario number 4. You are not qualified for PGP coverage, and you may need an individual NPDES permit. If you will be applying pesticide to a state water, or your pesticide application will get into a state water, and your pesticide application will be in a Class A marine water or a Class 2 inland water, and your pesticide application does not fall under any of the pesticide usage patterns, you do not qualify for coverage under the Pesticide General Permit, and an individual NPDES permit may be required. We covered 4 main scenarios on the flowchart. The majority of all situations will be covered in these 4 scenarios. Please remember that this flowchart is intended to summarize permit applicability and requirements. It is not all-inclusive of the terms, conditions, and requirements of the Pesticide General Permit. You must read HAR 11-55 Appendix M for further details. The NOI Form M and individual NPDES permit application are available on the e-permitting portal. The web address is shown on your screen. To take these forms in the e-permitting portal, use the Application Finder button and type CWB NOI Form M or individual NPDES application. Then follow the instructions to submit. As a reminder, non-compliance with HRS 342D, HAR 11-54, the Water Quality Standard, and HAR 11-55 Appendix M, the Pesticide General Permit, is a violation of state law. You may be subject to penalties up to $25,000 per violation per day and up to 2 years in jail. If you have any questions on the e-permitting portal, please contact the e-permitting portal administrator. If you have any NPDES permit questions, please contact the Department of Health in Water Branch.
All right, we can get the lights. That concludes the video for this morning. The video we just watched is already available on the Clean Branch website. So go to the Clean Water Branch site under workshop presentations. You can find this video. So you can use it as a refresher. If you need one, you can forward it by email to anyone who you know maybe wanted to be here today and couldn't make it. So now that we've gone through the basics of the Pesticide General Permit, we're going to go into a question and answer panel. And so we're going to take a few minutes, about 5-minute break to get the panel set up here, and then we'll resume. So get the restrooms, if you need to use them, are just out here, out the door to the left.